Yeah, so I want to introduce you to Shelley Heffler. I got to meet her when she delivered her work, and it was great to see everything get uncrated and the surprise of 2D work, but also the floating rocks. Very exciting. So, Shelley, tell us about your work and maybe, and again, questions. Do you want them
at the end?
At the end. At the end would be best. So, okay. Well,
thank you so
Shelley.
much. Again, I want to thank Christine Sutherland and the team here. Wonderful. So installing this work it definitely was a teamwork, and I'm so impressed with it. And it's great to meet Diane because the work looks amazing together, and I can't imagine anybody else I would like to have another show with. So the work is called The Maps of the Imagination, and in the process and thinking about the work, I usually start off with a grid, and I have the grid as my foundation, and they kind of disappear and come in and out of the pieces as I'm working the process. I'm interested in this idea of the Anthropocene era, and this is a new word that came to me several months ago. And the Anthropocene era is about man's impact on the earth. And what I realized when I thought about this and studied this, I thought that's what I've been looking at. It's like, how are we changing our planet? And the idea of the ice caps melting and flooding different landforms, how is that changing our environment? How is that impacting just our visual and our environment? So I'm very interested in the environmental changes that occur, like oil spills, and how man has created good things and bad things. And it's also this idea of nature versus man, and who's always going to win. Maps have been around, of course, since the beginning of time, and they've never been so exact as we have today. So I guess I can go to Google and look at those maps and copy those. But to me, that's not where I'm at. I'm an abstract painter, so I want to infuse in my work this idea that my impression of what's going on this planet, what's going on in the earth, how are we changing it? So I do look at the NASA maps. I do look at, they have different satellite imagery, and I think they're amazing. But as we focus close and as we move back from our planet, there is an evolution and a changing format that I see in the work. And I've always been interested in maps, and it didn't occur to me till I started this whole series. And I remember when I was a little girl sitting in the back of the classroom, taking out those big maps with the topography on it, and I didn't know where anything is. It was this idea of here's something green and here's a line, and I would imagine I'm going to go to these places, who knows what they look like. And it was very, thinking about that, I go, wow, this is great. These are really places I'm going to go one day. And I did. Years ago, I lived in Spain, and I traveled all over Asia. I was in Afghanistan and Pakistan and India, and of course those places we can't go to now. But just the idea of here's this line on a map, and what's out there. So this idea of traveling and time travel and the environment is very much a part of what I'm interested in my paintings. And I know people are saying, well, what about the rocks? So I started thinking again about the earth. And I taught ceramics for like 25 years, and that's working with earth. And I love the material of ceramics and clay. And just the manipulation of that material got me to thinking, how can I do it with other materials? Because there's a huge process with ceramics. And I, of course, since I want to make large pieces and I have to do it myself, carry it myself, I started thinking, how can I make these large pieces that I can move around? The rocks came, I kept thinking about this area and the rock formations. And again, thinking about the mark making on rocks and how graffiti used to be marked on it and it would tell stories. So if you look close, this is made with maps. There's maps underneath, but the painting on top is very, a color that represents represents to me what's happening in the desert. The hot colors and the sky that's really blue. And then there's also this little thing, these little things, that's man. To me, these little square geometric forms are man's impact, how they change them. So I have these ideas of these natural forms, and the lines are those man impressing themselves on the land. And so these little square forms are also man's impact. How are they changing? And maybe at some point there's going to be big blocks and then more organic forms. So I'm in the process of doing some more work like this, and I'm having a solo show at the Verde Valley Gallery in September. So it's going to be totally new work, something different here.
Thanks.
So I'm kind of nervous about it. Anybody have any questions? Yes.
Red lines on your maps.
Mm-hmm.
Why? How did you get to that?
Well, I study maps a lot. I look at a lot of different maps, and there are different kinds of lines. So a red line is usually representing a road.
A boat?
A road.
Oh, okay.
Road.
So that's why you have
The red
roads
lines.
all over the world.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay, so I have a question. As a sculptor, I'm thinking, what's underneath that I love your surface, but I'm so curious, what's inside? How did you build it? So maybe reveal some of your process.
Well, there's a wire form that I have,
Okay.
wire, and then I have some wood and plaster that keeps it weighted down, and then of course it's paper and other materials.
Okay.
There's styrofoam.
Oh, okay. All right, no, it's like, because the surface is so luscious, and it's hard to imagine what, anyway, so thank you for revealing
Yeah.
the interior world.
I actually saw this piece in, I think it was in New York, and it was this huge form that took up this whole room, and it was all like a paper mache form, it was all black, and I thought, oh my, I would love to do something that would just
Room
encompass a
size?
whole room, and I thought,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, one day. Proposal. Any other questions? Yeah.
Quick question. You've got these scrunch paintings in the
Mhm.
background. What's is it like a feathering or the layering? It looks like almost like a bannering effect.
At the back, oh, so those pieces, so as a painter, I also want to sculpt. And so I started taking my canvases and having them lie flat, and I thought they just, because of my ceramic background, I got to change it. And they were all these lines and forms, and I started listening to, I think there were hurricanes and tornadoes, and I started taking the canvases that, canvas to some people when they're painting, it's very precious. You don't, alter it. So I thought, what? Why not? So I started changing and altering my pieces and creating these swirls or things that represent hurricanes. Because when you look at hurricanes from the satellite maps, they are swirled, and then they have these fanning effects on them. So I'm using that idea of changing the canvas away, getting away from the flat piece and just altering it.
So did you paint the canvas flat,
Yes.
let it dry, and then start manipulating?
Yes, and there's mediums that I've used to keep it flexible. I paint both sides. I use mediums to make sure that the paint doesn't crack, so it's flexible.
Interesting.
And they're very lightweight.
Is it my imagination, or that kind of looks like a torso to me? I know that man is the little square ones, but is it like how we compartmentalize ourselves? Or is that intentional, or is it just?
Well, isn't it true that when we look at things, we're always trying to associate something that anthropomorphizes it, So, yeah, I know. It's like, when I did that, it was not intentional, but to me, there are very figurative forms that are emerging from these. So thanks for recognizing that. Good.
Yeah. See a little bit of the Belvedere torso there.
Yes. So I want to thank
maybe-
everyone for coming out on this